Imagine a city so vast, so alive, that its energy choices could literally reshape the future of the planet. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something absolutely critical, not just for climate, but for how we live in cities. We're talking about the urgent need for climate action and the real pivotal role cities have to play.
Yeah, pivotal is definitely the word because, cities consume something like two-thirds of global energy, and they're responsible for 70% of greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah.
Sounds like a massive
Yeah,
problem.
huge.
But it also means they're perfectly placed for solutions. It's where the impact can be biggest,
And exactly. And our guide for this today is some really groundbreaking research. It's a paper called Energy Transition in Megacities Towards 100% Renewable Energy, a Case for Delhi.
Yeah, and our mission here is basically to unpack how this study explores if a 100% renewable future is technically possible and, economically viable for a megacity like Delhi. And it's not just about the lights staying on. It covers power, heat, transport, even desalination. It's kind of a blueprint, really, for other cities facing similar things.
Okay, so blueprint. Let's unpack this. What makes Delhi such a crucial subject for this kind of deep dive?
Well, first, the global picture, right?
Yeah.
The Paris Agreement aiming for 1.5 degrees C means we need huge GHG cuts, and cities are absolutely central. A megacity that's defined as over 10 million people. And the thing is, most future megacities are popping up in developing regions. Think China, think India especially.
Right, and Delhi's situation is stark. It's set to be the world's biggest city by 2028. We're talking over 37 million people.
Just imagine that scale.
Yeah. And right now, India's economy runs heavily on fossil fuels, which leads to, well, frankly, terrible air pollution, especially in North India. It's a health emergency. Plus, you've got major water stress. So it's this perfect storm, isn't it? Huge energy demand, health crises, water issues. But also, as the study seems to show, huge potential.
Precisely. And that's why this research is so important. There's been lots of work on cities and climate change, sure, but finding really comprehensive roadmaps for megacities, especially ones properly linked into their regional grids, well, that's been pretty scarce. So this study fills a real gap to give a detailed example for others.
It sounds incredibly complex, though. I mean, how did they even start to model something this big? It's not just a few solar panels, is it?
No, not at all. The core method they used is called the LUT Energy System Transition Model. Think of it as a really sophisticated planning tool. It's technology-rich, it covers multiple sectors, multiple regions, and it finds the cheapest, the cost-optimal way forward. It looks at power, heat, transport, desalination, the whole shebang. And crucially, it didn't just look at Delhi alone. It saw Delhi as a hub within the bigger North Indian grid, 8 states or regions all connected. That regional bit is key.
Right. Cities aren't islands. That makes sense. So how did they break down this super complex problem?
They used a two-step process. First was prosumer optimization that basically looked at individual homes and businesses, prosumers, people who produce and consume energy. How could they use things like rooftop solar, batteries, maybe efficient heat pumps to generate and store their own power and heat, saving themselves money?
Okay, so starting from the bottom up almost, empowering individuals.
Kind of, yeah. And then step 2 was the overall energy systems simulation. So after figuring out the prosumer part, the model put everything together across the entire North Indian grid. The goal was to find the absolute lowest cost energy mix from 2020 out to 2050, maximizing renewables across the whole region, figuring out the best way to share power between states. It's about the whole system working optimally.
And the end goal, the vision they mapped out, what did they call that?
That's called the best policy scenario, or BPS. It's their roadmap to get to zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And crucially, they argue it's technically doable and actually makes economic sense using a whole range of sustainable tech.
Okay, so a whole range of tech, not just solar and wind, I assume.
Oh yeah, much more. Obviously lots of solar PV and wind, but also tons of storage. You've got batteries, big utility ones, and smaller ones for prosumers for short-term stuff. Then pumped hydro, thermal energy storage, even power to gas, converting electricity to gas for like seasonal storage when the sun isn't shining as much. And then there are these things called sector coupling technologies.
Sector coupling. What exactly does that mean?
Basically, they link different parts of the energy system. Think heat pumps using renewable electricity for heating, or electrolyzers using surplus green electricity to make hydrogen. It makes the whole system much more flexible. You can use that renewable energy wherever it's needed most, whether that's power, heat, or even fuel. It cuts down waste.
Okay, got it. So what does this future actually look like according to the results? What did this study find for Delhi in North India?
Well, one of the headline findings is this huge efficiency gain. In their main scenario, the high electrification scenario, primary energy demand drops by over 3,800 TWAs compared to business as usual.
Yeah.
That's an enormous saving, like wiping out Germany's annual energy use just through efficiency.
Wow.
And fundamentally, the whole energy system flips. In 2020, it was mostly fossil fuels and nuclear. By 2050, under this plan, it's nearly 95% electricity-based. That's a massive paradigm shift.
A total transformation, and that must ripple through every sector. Like, how does transport change?
Completely. Fossil fuels in transport, they dropped from 96% in 2020 to basically zero by 2050.
Yeah.
Replaced mostly by direct electrification, so electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And then for things like heavy trucks or planes, you got renewable electricity-based e-fuels, things like synthetic fuels, hydrogen. They become a big part of the mix. And it's a similar story for heating. Big shift to electricity, mainly using those efficient heat pumps and some direct electric heating. The whole landscape changes.
And to supply all that electricity and heat, the generation side must explode, right?
Absolutely. The total installed capacity across North India grows from around 100 gigawatts in 2020 to over 2,600 gigawatts by 2050.
2,600.
Yeah. And solar PV just dominates that growth. It goes from maybe 39% of electricity in 2030 to about 96% by 2050. It just becomes the cheapest option by far. And storage is critical to making that work, obviously. Batteries handle the short-term ups and downs. And then you need thermal storage and gas storage, likely from power to gas, to balance things out over seasons. It's a really dynamic system.
Okay, that regional connection sounds crucial again. How does a packed city like Delhi, with not much space, actually hit 100% renewables in this setup? Where does its power come from?
Right, Delhi's a fascinating case. It's small, area-wise under 1,500 square kilometers. But its energy use per person is actually higher than the Indian average. But here's the interesting bit. A huge chunk of its electricity demand, over 80%, is residential. That makes it perfect for rooftop solar. Lots of prosumers generating power right there. And this study sees a total shift away from traditional biomass, cow dung, wood, kerosene, which is still used a lot in poorer households for cooking and heating. That moves entirely to clean electric services, which is a huge win for health and quality of life.
But even with all the rooftops, Delhi can't generate everything it needs. Surely it must import power.
Well, absolutely. That's correct.
Well,
The study shows Delhi generating almost 80% of its own electricity from solar by 2050, which is amazing. But it still needs to import a lot over 70% of its needs from 2035 onwards from the wider North Indian grid.
okay, so it relies on its neighbors. Is that a weakness?
Actually, no, the study frames it as a strategic strength. It's a win-win. Delhi gets access to the fantastic, low-cost renewable resources in nearby states like Rajasthan, which has amazing sun, or Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand with hydro potential. Those states become major exporters of clean energy. Delhi benefits, they benefit. It's synergistic.
So you need a really strong grid, good transmission lines to make that exchange work smoothly.
Exactly. That infrastructure is vital. It allows for that cost-optimal sharing, keeps the lights on reliably in Delhi. The study even suggests Delhi might invest directly in renewable projects in neighboring states or use long-term power purchase agreements. It really becomes about regional cooperation.
This is about so much more than just energy tech then. It sounds like there are massive, wider benefits. What else did the study highlight?
Well, a key finding is that this transition is cost-optimal. The overall cost of energy, the levelized cost of energy, or LCOE, across North India actually goes down by over 25% by 2050. It ends up around 39 euros per megawatt hour. That's mainly because you're getting rid of expensive fossil fuel imports. So it means greater energy independence, energy security for the whole region, including Delhi. That's a big economic plus.
Cheaper energy, more security. That's huge. And the environmental wins seem obvious, but what about the scale?
Well, greenhouse gas emissions go down fast, hitting zero by 2050 for both North India and Delhi. So bang on track for the Paris Agreement goals.
Yeah.
And air pollution. This is massive for the region. It's projected to drop to near zero.
Near zero air pollution in North India. That's almost hard to imagine. The health impact must be enormous. Did they quantify that?
They did, yeah. And the numbers are staggering. Potential savings of up to 48 US cents per kilowatt hour just in health costs. And it could avoid something like 37,000 to 53,000 premature deaths per year in Delhi alone once you reach 100% renewables.
Wow, that's a massive social benefit right there.
It really is. And then there's water. Switching away from thirsty thermal power plants frees up huge amounts of water. Plus, the plan includes renewable power desalination, providing over 180 million cubic meters of fresh water per day by the 2040s. That tackles water security head-on.
Okay, health, water costs. What about jobs? A massive shift like this must impact employment hugely.
It does. And positively, according to this study, the total number of direct energy jobs across North India is projected to more than triple, from about 1.8 million in 2020 to over 4.4 million by 2050.
More than triple. Where are those jobs coming from?
Mostly in the power sector itself, building and operating all that solar and wind, and also in transmission and distribution, managing the smarter grid. Crucially, the study finds that far more jobs are created than lost from the fossil fuel sector decline. So it supports that idea of a just transition.
That's really important. Okay, one last practical question. All that solar, especially the big utility scale stuff, is there enough land?
Good question. Comes up all the time. This study looks specifically at Rajasthan, which has huge solar potential. They calculated that only about 7% of Rajasthan's land area would be needed for the utility-scale solar PV required to power all of North India.
Only 7%.
Yeah, so land availability, while needing careful planning, is definitely not a barrier to hitting 100% renewables for the whole region.
So tying this all together, this deep dive into energy transition in megacities towards 100% renewable energy, a case for Delhi really paints an optimistic picture, doesn't it? It feels transformative.
It really does. I mean, the core message is pretty clear. Megacities like Delhi, they can go 100% renewable. And in doing so, they can drive regional change, cut energy costs, massively improve health, boost energy security, and create millions of jobs. It's a really compelling data-driven case, a practical blueprint.
It suggests the future for our biggest cities isn't just about, managing climate change, but actually building a much better, healthier, more prosperous way of life. Which leaves us all with a thought, perhaps. What steps could your own city be taking right now to move towards this kind of future? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into energy transition in megacities towards 100% renewable energy, a case for Delhi. Join us next time on The Deep Dive.